I'm Microsoft teaming with Microsoft Teams. I'm learning and dreaming with Microsoft Teams. The hub and the teamwork of Microsoft 365 in these quarantine times. I'm Microsoft teaming with Microsoft Teams. Yeah, with Microsoft Teams.
Hey everybody, welcome to this week's episode of Inside Microsoft Teams. I'm your host, Stephen Rose, and thanks for joining us. This week you're in for a treat, because if you've ever ridden in a snowmobile or an ATV or personal watercraft, even motorcycles, you're in for a treat, because we're sitting down with Polaris Industries today. Now, what's great about Polaris is they're a company that has continued to reinvent themselves. They were founded in 1954 in Minnesota, but what's really interesting is while the owner was away on a business trip, the employees got together and said, hey, I have this cool idea. And they built a snowmobile. The owner came back and said, you built this on company time with company stuff? And they said, yeah. One thing led to another, and it became a monster. And they do motorcycles, snowmobiles, boats, ATVs, neighborhood electric. They are the largest manufacturers of snowmobiles in the world, the largest U.S. manufacturer of ATVs and personal watercraft. As a matter of fact, 60% of all the snowmobiles they produce are done in Minnesota. So I am super excited to have Tim and Sheila and Boris with me this week to talk about it. So let's introduce our guests. Tim, I'll start with you. How are you today, Tim?
I'm doing wonderful, Stephen. So I here at Polaris, I'm the divisional CIO, and I have oversight of our modern workplace team. So that's really what we're talking about today is the modern workplace space here at Polaris.
Awesome. Sheila, take a moment and introduce yourself.
Hi, Stephen. Sheila Miller. I am a Modern Workplace program lead. I'm very focused on user adoption and employee experience in the team.
Awesome. And finally, Boris Rubanovich. Boris, welcome. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you very much. I'm a designer with the ORV technology team. My team develops concepts and builds prototypes.
Awesome. So let's set the Wayback Machine for pre-COVID, which I know sounds like a million years ago with the way that things have been. But Tim, you had decided long before all this stuff hit that the only way to move forward was with a single platform. And your goal was to sort of create a common culture. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Sure. So when I thought about Polaris as an enterprise, really although we're an enterprise, we also have separate companies within this enterprise. And I was thinking about how do we connect as one enterprise and have a common voice? Our solutions were really disparate at the time. So I was thinking about one platform with the ability to collaborate, have phone capabilities, presentation capabilities, but also store files. And after a few visits with Microsoft, Teams really jumped out as that platform. So we kind of leaned in on that way in advance of COVID. Obviously, COVID helped accelerate that.
Yeah. And so COVID hits. But now it's got to be something more than just a way to make phone calls and a way to occasionally chat. Because I know there are things like, connectivity with people working from home. There can be vanity issues with people not wanting to be on camera because of a messy room or how they look. So how did you start to get people engaged once COVID hit? How did you create that culture?
Really, there was a few things. One was just us internally within a few select group of folks within IT understanding the technology and using it as a reference case, using it as an example in meetings, but then reaching out to the business and finding key players that were kind of coach champions within their departments to also understand the technology, lean in. It was an optional at first technology. We didn't force this to happen because we knew that if we created a groundswell, that would be a much easier action to take later. So it wasn't a forced in technology. It was more of a ground up, allow the people to experience it and really understand the charm of Teams.
Got it. So what were some of the best practices? Because we've heard from a lot of customers saying, that's great, but then we ran into sprawl or we were worried about security. So did you look at things like MFA? How did you handle sprawl? And what did you do about file sharing?
Yeah, so definitely, sprawl was definitely a concern from past technologies. We learned a lesson about sprawl. So what we did is we created a governance committee and really met and talked about the technology, the potential of sprawl, how do we control that. We did use multi-factor authentication. We also put some security in place so that as you create teams, it requires an approval process so that we don't have teams being created just spontaneously. So there was some controls put in place through the governance committee oversight.
So it sounds like you really sat down with folks and really understood their roles, what they were going to be using the software for, and how to sort of walk through those processes to make sure that, the blockers that somebody would have or mentally had would not be an issue as you started to move forward to this, and try to make it as easy as possible to use, correct?
Absolutely. And we eventually started calling those folks champions. So we have a champions group. We have an entire area that's led by Sheila, helping them understand the technology, the new features coming, helping them get comfortable with how to configure your microphone or your camera, what's best practices, when to use a microphone that's external versus one that's part of your computer. So just going through all those specifics, getting people comfortable.
So Sheila, as the modern workplace lead, the goal is driving adoption. So what were some of the things that you did to help get people involved, to give them the resources that they need, and to get that guidance and that best practice?
Well, we did a lot of things, but as Tim alluded to, we started off with a champions program that really enlisted technology influencers across our organization, people that were interested in solving problems with technology, like working different with their business processes. And so they looked to a modern workplace team to help guide them in how do I use this new technology. They were excited about it. And so we spent an awful lot of time with those folks, and they were our ambassadors, if you will, in disseminating information, and started to use the technology and embrace the technology and start to talk about it in a positive way, and show people across our organization how to work differently. We couldn't quite get to everybody. I mean, we're so big, we have global presence. To get to everybody was going to be quite an undertaking for our team. So we really needed these folks to join us, and they did wholeheartedly and embraced it. Along with the champions, we created some self-service tools available for people on our SharePoint, like knowledge base articles, so they could go search and find information about best practices, how to have effective meetings, how to use the chat and Teams and the channels. And we're now continually providing new resources to the employees so that they can get the best out of Teams that they can.
What about video training and things like that? Did you guys do snack videos? Did you download some for your portal? Because we know that video is one of the best ways to connect with people. So what were some of the different methods that you used to help kind of walk folks through this? Don't be afraid. Here's how you use it kind of process.
Yeah, great question. We did a lot of different modalities. We took advantage of what Microsoft offers from our stores, and we did some training where people could come in and have the live event training from experts from Microsoft, giving the information. That was very beneficial to us in our small, very lean team for Modern Workplace to share all of this information. So those videos were extremely helpful, those live events, and then later videos. We've created, like I say, the Word document knowledge-based articles, but also screen recordings as needed, and uploading things into Stream so that people can go and look at 2-minute videos or of content that we've created and recorded for them.
And you hit on a really good point. I get this question all the time: is we want to create some video training, so we're going to do a series of hour-long videos. And I'm like, no, don't. Training videos should be 3 to 5 minutes. That's it. Yep. 2 minutes is perfect. 3 to 5, no more than 5, because you're just going to lose that attention span. So it should be high. Here's this new feature. Here's why we're using it. Here's how it works. Tell us what you think. And being really pointy about that makes a huge difference. And I think between your champions and your snack videos and the guidance, I think you found that small bites for everybody, at least that's the way I'm interpreting it, seem to be the way to success. Is that a correct assumption?
Absolutely correct. In fact, we've even just recently launched a new program for 1 minute or less, calling the campaign Minute to Learn It, all about Teams. And so people can just click for less than a minute and either hear how to do something or read how to do something. That's great.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So one of the problems, and Tim, I'm going to point this back at you. One of the great things about Teams is it's available everywhere on every device. So you can go out and take the dog for a walk. You can go to lunch. You could be working at a Starbucks. You can work from home. But one of the problems about Teams is you can have it always on and on every device, and it follows you. It's definitely a mixed thing. So how did you kind of figure out and find work-life balance so that people weren't like, hey, this is my own personal time and I'm getting pinged on questions, and how to do that? How did you sort of work through that, and did you have to make adjustments?
Actually, it hasn't been too bad. I think COVID has helped set that tone a bit. More flexibility during the day, allowing more flexibility at night, which means work doesn't necessarily go 8 to 5, but you also don't necessarily work 8 to 5. You may take an hour-long lunch and go for a jog, but later that night, answer a quick chat in Teams. I think we've all adapted where work-life balance is now distributed throughout the day versus hard block chunks, evening, lunch, afternoon, that kind of thing. So I believe we as a company have just evolved with the technology. I don't see us abusing it. For the most part, if someone's pinging me at night and I'm responding, it's something that I needed to hear and needed to respond to. So I don't see it as a challenge.
Interesting. So speaking of challenges, and that's a great segue, is you have your big global meeting coming up, something that you've always done in person with all your employees, and because of COVID, you've got to move to and do this whole thing virtually. So we're going to take a quick break. We're going to show a video from Logitech showing off their new Meetup Teams room system and their new earbuds that they're coming out with. And then we're going to come back to Sheila and talk about how they kind of put this together. And Boris is going to kind of walk us through some of the cool stuff that they did in Teams. So let's take a look at the new devices just about to be released from Logitech. Hey everyone, welcome to Tech Workbench. This week we're going to take a look at two brand new devices from Logitech. The first product we're going to take a look at are the Zone True Wireless. These are brand new earbuds from Logi, and I absolutely love them. You probably noticed I was wearing them during our last show. They're super comfortable and they're great to wear all day long. The case itself, USB-C. As soon as you open up the case, it will immediately tell you how much charge you have left. You can also see that there's a purple light that will turn purple when you're on a Teams call or just light up. Your sync button. You can also see the right and left right there, which is great, and it makes it really easy to slide in via the magnetic connector. Closes up really nice and simple. And the additional accessories that you get with it, you get the sync cable, you get a USB-C to USB adapter, some additional earbuds in case they're not the right size or you need a replacement. And I'm really happy that they also give you the USB adapter. This is great so that you can put it in your PC, be automatically connected with your buds, and don't have to disconnect or reconnect when you want to move to another device like an iPad or a phone or an Android device. You're always connected. These are USB 5. They do support Q wireless charging, so you can put them right down on your pad, have it automatically charge up. Talk time ran about 6.5 hours and about 10 to 12 hours of listening time when I was just doing music. The case is good for 2 full recharges, and with a 5-minute quick charge, you can get an additional 2 hours of music at any time. Busy light, like I said, when on a call, purple for Teams, omnidirectional mics, and active noise canceling, so you can black out all of the background noise. And lots of great different settings that you can set up. So if you want the buttons to make you go forward songs or stop or pause or end calls, totally configurable. So that is the Zone True Wireless. Now let's take a look at the brand new Rally Bar. This is the Rally Bar Mini. There are 3 different sizes of the Rally Bar. There is the Mini, the regular bar, and the Rally Plus. And the only real difference between them at the highest level is the size of the device and the size room that it is going to support. Now, let's take a look at the camera for a second, because this is a motorized pan and tilt, and it uses right sight, which means it's going to always be scanning to see how many people are in the room, adjust itself for light, pull back or zoom in if for more or for less people, but always ensure that you have the best coverage for the folks in the room. It's 4K, and that is the AI viewfinder that goes out and takes a look for all of that. It also has AI speech detection, which can link into Teams and tell you who's talking and automatically optimize for that. And like all Rally bars, it also has a full appliance mode that can be leveraged. The zoom is going to change. The Mini is a 4x zoom, the regular Rally bar is a 15x zoom, and the Rally Plus is a 15x total zoom with some different optical and digital variances on that. all have that AI viewfinder, and all of these support external mic pods. The Mini does 2, the regular Rally Bar is 3, and the Rally Plus can support up to 7 in the larger conference rooms. Let's take a look at some of our options on the back. So our power, here's where our mic pod goes. Again, how many depends on which size device you are going to be using. 3 USB-A ports. I also like the fact that they give you lots of cable management options here, and then there's a screw-on case that goes on top. Pulling it down a little bit further, we have our HDMI in and 2 additional HDMI TV ports if you want to do 2 monitors side by side doing an extension, etc. You can connect that in right here. Ethernet for device management and USB-C right there, and our reset button, our Bluetooth button, and our power button. So this is our Rally Bar Mini, currently available from Logitech. I encourage you to check it out for all different size rooms.
Awesome. Great new stuff from Logitech. And for those of you saying, hey, I need some new UC gear, that looks awesome. We actually have a brand new device trade-in program that I want to take a moment and talk about. We're going to put the slide up here on the screen. But what it allows you to do is we've made it easy for businesses to get cash back in exchange for trading in their old devices. We've partnered with a company called Network Value. Their vendor specializes in running global trade-in programs for OEMs. We support most of the video conferencing meeting room system, IP phones, devices across OEMs. It's super easy to do, so go check out aka.ms/Teams Device Trade-In. And you can get all the details and figure out how you can upgrade so that you can have the super cool new stuff in the cool new Teams room. So with that, I'm coming back. Sheila, we kind of set up that your annual conference is coming up and you've got to do this virtually. So kind of walk us through, what you did to make this successful and some of the surprises that you got. Because one of the things that we were chatting about was that people could get engaged in totally new and different ways. And that was kind of an unexpected value. So walk us through what this conference is and how this all sort of took place.
Boris and his team had approached the Modern Workplace team to get a creative way to have their event that they normally had in person in a virtual way, and contacted us looking for that creative way to do it. And we helped them consider all of the options, and it essentially landed on SharePoint Spaces to give that virtual experience while giving people the opportunity to talk with the product owners if they needed to use with the integration of Teams, with SharePoint and Teams integration. So made it a seamless experience for people to have, like they were walking into an event and talking to an individual and looking at our vehicles as if they were doing that, but they did it all virtually with SharePoint and Teams. But Boris is the one that is truly the expert. He brought that to life. And so I want to have him probably tell the story better than I could about how that came to be.
All right, Boris, and you have a video where you've cut together some of the stuff that you're doing. You're going to walk us through it. So why don't we cut over to you and have you do that for us?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. So the symposium is our annual event. It is ORV Technology Symposium, which we hold like every year, but usually this happens at our shop. And we have projects on hand, and everybody can come in, touch the projects, touch the hardware, take for a test drive a vehicle if it is drivable, and talk to project owners. But this time around, due to COVID situation, we actually had to come up with a new way how we can present our projects, how can we hold our annual event, and how we can introduce it to like pretty much everybody in the company. So the Teams Spaces, it was the answer that actually helped us big time, because I was able to set up a 3D environment, present all of the projects in a 3D environment where people could look around, take a look at the photographs, take a look at the videos. We had meetings set up with the project owners where people could talk live, ask questions, provide comments. Unfortunately, in this sample video, I cannot show you all of the good stuff all of the projects which are hidden behind the doors,
Of course.
so to say. But for fun for our visitors, we actually had several games for them set up that they could play and have a little bit of fun, score some points, and win some prizes.
That's awesome. So what was the reaction to this? And let me also ask as part of that, did we have more people show up because it was a virtual event than would have normally shown up in for a physical one, or kind of a combination? And I can open that up to anybody who wants to answer that.
Yes, because the physical event, it was taken at one place, and obviously everybody who is working at that one place could come and visit. But
Right.
from other locations, if people could or wanted or willing to travel to our locations, they could stop by. But unfortunately, we didn't have that many people doing so.
Right.
But because we're a global company, we have offices in North America and across the seas in Europe and in Asia and other places too. So this virtual event allowed us to connect to all of those locations, and a lot more people were able to actually participate in the symposium. And also considering time zones, the event was upheld for like a whole day, pretty much. So everybody on our planet in any time zone could explore the event on their own pace, and we're not dependent on our business hours.
Right. Sheila, what was the overall reaction and feedback that you got?
Oh, they did a survey and had an NPS score that had more than doubled or nearly doubled in the score that they had, as far as people saying that they felt innovative attending the event, because I think the technology that we were using was contributing to that sentiment of feeling like we are making it an innovative experience. We are an innovative company, so it was only appropriate that people would have that feeling by attending that event. So great results.
That's
great
awesome.
Feedback.
And Tim, what did leadership think?
Well, the nice thing was leadership could attend. So like Boris mentioned, this facility is an hour from where I currently work. So I was able to join for part of it and then drop off. I didn't feel guilty. If I would have traveled up there in person, it would have been a full day commitment,
right,
travel time. So more of our leadership experienced this, I believe, than ever before. So the feedback from folks were, hey, it gives us the flexibility, and they could go to specific areas quickly that they had interest in while skipping over other areas. Whereas a live event, you're at the mercy of the agenda. So we got a lot of good feedback.
So as we look to the future, is this going to stay a virtual event? Is it going to go hybrid? How has this changed how you think about this sort of point in time for the company and its employees as you move forward?
I think hybrid is the right word to use. We're learning things through this last year and a half, 2 years, where it gave us capabilities we didn't have before. We don't want those to go away, but we also don't want to completely replace the human element. So there will still be the in-person option with the virtual option. We haven't quite thought through how we're going to do this year, but I do believe more than half the agenda will probably be the virtual, with the in-person being shortened quite a bit.
That's awesome. You made a great comment when we were chatting a few weeks ago, and that was one of the things that you love to see now in meetings is people chatting, which doesn't sound like a positive thing, but it is. Explain what you mean by that, because I absolutely love this and want to make sure that we share this with the audience.
So if you think of before COVID, for us, at least as a company, we had people in a conference room and maybe another remote conference room or two, all part of one meeting. If you were in the remote conference room, you could hear someone chatting or whispering over the phone. Hey, they have a question. They're talking to someone. Are they asking something pertinent to the meeting or not? Well, so then we find ourselves all at home, working from home during COVID. And frankly, you can't have those chats anymore, those whispers. So instead, people were using the online chat and asking the question, and everyone in the entire audience could see the question and the answer. So that was really nice. We came back to the office now. We're spending some time in conference rooms again. We're finding that we continue doing that. We're not having those sidebar conversations and those whispers anymore. Instead, we're using the chat session right there live, asking the question. Someone else in the room might be answering it, but everyone in the meeting got to experience that same question and answer.
And from a diversity and inclusion aspect, that's also really critical because there are people who just may not feel comfortable speaking up during a meeting. If English is a second language, being able to view the transcript and have those chats can make a really, really big difference, or actually have the live transcription going on if someone's hard of hearing, etc. So that's a whole nother level. And are you finding that people that maybe weren't really engaged before are now starting to engage in new ways?
Absolutely, we're finding that. So folks who were afraid to interrupt or have a different style of communicating where they want to see a pause break for a certain few seconds before they speak, maybe the pause never happened, they didn't say anything. Now they feel comfortable typing that comment right there in the chat, hitting send, and boom, there it is. It enriches the meeting.
Yeah, that's awesome. And that's an amazing way to put it. So I want to go around. Sheila, I'm going to start with you. Favorite feature or benefit from Teams?
Oh, Stephen, I knew you were going to ask this, and I have 3, but I did prioritize, and I came up with one. Just since I'm first, I'm going to use my number 1, and that's the group chats. My group chats. I love using group chats. Quick, easy conversations. Pull a few folks together, talk about what you need to talk about, and disperse. You get stuff done so much faster. And of course, obviously the app mentions that you can do in those group chats and sharing files. It took having short, quick conversations to another level. And I love it.
What is number 2? I have to know.
The meeting experience. I love Teams meetings. The meeting experience with the videos and the chat and the recording and the meeting notes and the attendance report. Just everything about it. I just think is fabulous. I think
that's awesome.
Really great functionality. I love it.
Perfect. Boris, same question.
I do like the spaces where I can set up the 3D presentation. I think this is kind of interactive and it's kind of interesting for people to see and still pay attention to it. And at the same time, it's kind of quickly, you can actually look around and see what you're most interested to see. Or if you have a specific question, you can fairly quickly find which way to go to find answer to your question. And you can communicate ideas, fairly quickly instead of just talking to each other in person. Try to describe by waving your hands around.
Right.
But this way you can have like a photograph or a schematic or a drawing or a video even. Just post it in and people can see it and understand what you're talking about.
Picture is worth 1,000 words. Absolutely.
And in addition, there is an option. If you have a 3D virtual glasses, you can actually see the whole thing in virtual reality. So that's kind of cool.
Absolutely. And for those not familiar with SharePoint Spaces, it's something we announced a few years ago. We have some great videos out on it. The team has done some great stuff. And I think how you guys have leveraged this is just absolutely amazing. Tim, same question.
Well, sure. Well, anyone who's known me for the last 15 years knows I have a mantra. I was seeking to be able to work anywhere, anytime, on any device with all your information. I was trying that through thin clients. I was trying that through desktop technologies. Actually, for the first time ever in my career, I'm experiencing it. I actually have any of the information I need at any time on any device I own. I actually last week went on vacation to wine country. I took just my phone. I had 3 really important meetings. One was a budget meeting. One was an interview that required resumes to be reviewed. All of that off my phone. It was really nice.
Wow.
That was my number 3.
That was your number 3? Is there a favorite mobile feature that you like, Sheila?
Oh boy. No, I can't think of one of all of it. I love all of them.
Have any of you started playing with the walkie-talkie feature yet? Being a manufacturing company, is that something that any of you have started to take a look at or have considered as something to implement?
Stephen, I'm going to jump in here and say you need to teach me because we have people asking for that capability, so I didn't realize it existed.
I would love to. It is so cool because it's like the old Nextel phones right there through Teams. Right. You connect up with a person. I can show you it takes about 5 minutes, and then you can tap. It shows you the folks, and you're just doing a direct communication. No call. We're finding folks in manufacturing are absolutely loving it and finding it to be a really great way to connect. So I will take that offline with you, and I would be happy to do it.
Perfect.
Make sure to check out the case study that we've put together for Polaris. I want to thank all Boris and Tim and Sheila for joining us. And also Tim will be on our panel at Ignite with our experts. So if you have questions for him that you weren't able to answer during today's show, make sure to join us for our roundtable session at Ignite, where he and some folks from Lego and Department of Justice and other companies will be joining us. So we have some really great user experience stuff. And speaking of Ignite, our next show will be our Ignite wrap-up, and we're going to have our old friends Paul Thurrott and Mary Jo Foley joining us. We're going to recap all the modern work announcements, the new features, functionality, and all the buzz from Microsoft Ignite Fall 2021. So make sure that you check that out. In the meantime, thanks so much for joining us. Check out the case study. Enjoy with the winter season coming up. For those of you in the Northern Hemisphere, enjoy checking out snowmobiles and cool stuff. For those of you in Southern, check out the watercraft from Polaris. They have a lot of really cool stuff. And thanks for joining us today on Inside Microsoft Teams. Jazz hands. That's how we do that.